I don't think we should let Kendi off the hook. I think we should do kind of a mini episode just on him next time, because it is part and parcel to all of this craziness that's going on, and he is a good illustration of someone who is being manipulative and fanning these flames for his own gain. And so,
Let me rant on that real quick. And if
okay,
it looks like it's going too long, then I'll just clip it.
okay,
Right. So, uh, first of all, we brought up Kendi earlier. His Ibram X Kendi, he wrote Stamped from the Beginning, How to Be an Anti-Racist. There are two staples in the diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings that are going on now. And he also is the head of, I don't know what he calls himself as far as position, but he's the head of the Anti-Racist Institute at Boston University. And he's developed quite a power base. I mean, Jack Dorsey just recently gave him $10 million to keep furthering his stuff. And he is trying to push for an anti-racist division in the United States federal government that basically the gist of it would be to evaluate all past policy and any future policy coming in from an anti-racist perspective. So all our laws, all our constitution, everything would be evaluated from an anti-racist perspective. And guess who gets to be the judge on what's racist? Mr. Kendi and his friends. So Ibram X Kendi, I read How to Be an Anti-Racist. I'm actually going to read Stamped from the Beginning here soon, because I have a client that has to read it for his corporate training. and he wants me to pick it apart like I did Anti-Racist and Are We Even Equal, which he has to read, so I already had those notes for him. But Ibram Kendi, what he is to me, and again, let me steel man him first. So we talk about that authoritarian versus chaotic entropy question. And I do believe there's a group of people so we talk about being in China's pocket, but I think there's groups of people that see China as a threat, and countries like that as a threat, Russia, etc., or what used to be the Soviet Union. And they know chaos always loses. And China is not chaos. China is as authoritarian as it gets. And they're the #2 world power right now, wanting to be the #1 world power. Mm-hmm. And if we keep trending towards chaos instead of freedom with common goal, which was the original intent, if we trend towards chaos, we will lose. And this is where I think people like Cuban, our big tech, Jack Dorsey, Zuckerberg, all those come into it. I think if I'm going to steelman them and give them every best intention, they think they're saving the country. And I think Kendi is in that kind of boat. And I think he might be have enough dissonance to think everything he says.
Well, and there's again, for me, from what my chair is supposed to kind of be here, is criticizing the right from the right. There is some fuel to that fire, because you have a whole lot of people, especially people, well, two kind of camps of people. You have the Tea Party, kind of more libertarian people who have been for a decade griping about the growing power and spending of the government, and nothing has changed. They've been ignored, and they're getting ticked off. And then you have all those kind of Rust Belt people who really swung things for Trump in 2016, that have been ignored and insulted by the Democrat Party. I think I mentioned Michael Moore. Did I mention that story in our first
You mentioned
episode?
last time.
Okay, last time. Yeah. So they've been insulted and ignored. So there's a significant chunk of those people that disturbingly have the motto of burn it all down. because so you've got the Antifa crazies and that violence on the left, but on the right, and it hasn't sprung into literal violence much. It's more political upheaval, but they have the mentality of burn it all down,
Mhm.
because they think that they can rebuild it better. That never happens.
Well, so and that's it's kind of important with Kendi because the key word here is assimilation. He breaks down there's two groups, racist and anti-racist, in his book How to Be an Anti-Racist. Uh, and I would directly quote it, but I had loaned that book out and I haven't got it back yet. So, but within racist, he breaks it down into two categories. There's the segregationalists and the assimilationists. We all know what the segregationalists are. They're the real racists, the ones that you and I would agree are racist. We are better, therefore they should be separate or just gone or whatever. So, but the assimilationists, which would be pretty much where almost all Americans are, is okay, we're all equal, assimilate into our society. And remember, this is going from a view that society was designed around Eurocentric white America. So if you are black, to assimilate into white society, you would have to remove your blackness. Does that make sense? And this goes into things. I mean, this was made evidence with the Smithsonian poster. If nobody remembers that because they took it down, it said these are the signs of whiteness, and it included things like being on time, working hard, saving, thinking ahead, stuff like that. And I don't know why that didn't cause more of a stir than it did, but that would be what the stance of an assimilationist. But what we have with Kendi is a fully assimilated black man making a shit ton of money off telling black America to not assimilate. And if you expect to assimilate, if you associate success with assimilation, you are a racist. But that's ridiculous because we all assimilate. If I moved to London and I continued to drive on the right side of the road, right-hand side of the road,
Upper side of the road, dang
I
it.
would die and take somebody else out with me.
Yes.
So I would have to start driving on the left side of the road. That's assimilation. And what we have in the United States of America is a system. If you want to talk about systemic things, we have a system where you can fully assimilate and still have your culture. That's why it's so great. That's why I fight for it. Because it is a system designed that you can fully assimilate for success and achieve it while still maintaining your individuality.
And that is the uniqueness of America that you referenced earlier. This idea that we were founded on an idea, okay, which we were. One of the things that's hard, I think, for Americans, especially modern Americans, when they're looking back on history, a lot of history is incredibly racist, and not just white black, which is what we think of here.
A lot
in
of
America.
people
That's
were
right.
incredibly racist. A lot of people
because
still are.
because basically every other country but us was founded by a race. Think about that. We were not founded by a race. We were founded by a disparate group of people who came together under a group of ideas about liberty and governance, and how one should live their life. But they came from all over Western Europe, and they had a whole bunch of different ideas, but they coalesced around this central idea. Pretty much every other country is homogeneous when it comes to race. I mean, that's why if you go back and you look at the way people talked in World War II, like Churchill continued to refer to Nazi Germany as the Hun. Well, I mean, that's what they were by and large. They were Germanic peoples. And Britain was the Anglo-Saxon peoples. The Japanese, holy cow, were they racist? And to us crackers, maybe they're just Asian, but no, they were a special race. And I really think that's important to understand and embrace, because that runs counter to this idea of anti-racism. And that's why assimilation here is good, because you can be, I mean, I went out on my evening walk the other day, and we have a local cricket club, and they were practicing in the tennis courts. These are all, engineers and whatnot from South Asia, and they are assimilated in that they embrace a lot of the ideals of America, and yet they're still doing their thing. I don't understand cricket. I have no desire to learn it or play it, but God bless them for being out there in the 45-degree weather at night, playing cricket and bonding with each other culturally with their roots, and yet still in a way that is American, because not that long ago, you and I would do that with baseball or whatever.
I brought up this article, if you could see it there, because Kendi has a special hatred for John McWhorter. He brings him up several times in his books.
I can't imagine why.
And calls McWhorter a racist and all this stuff. And he's also refused to debate McWhorter. Or another guy that I followed, Coleman Hughes, another black intellectual, has gone on public record and says, I would love to debate you in a public forum. And Kendi's response is, you would just misinterpret what I say. And I said, that's the point of a debate, because then you get to explain your interpretation. But this is a good article on what he's calling third wave anti-racism, where first wave and second, the first wave would be your civil rights protests. Second wave would be the initial group of Black America that had to deal with the continued racism after civil rights. And then the third wave would be where I'm talking about, where everything's really picked up in about the 2010s. So it's a really good article, and he lists a bunch of basically tenets of the third wave of anti-racism, and if you really say them out loud, how contradictory they are. So if people want a good little read, go see John McWhorter. I think it's an excerpt out of his newest book. I haven't gotten that yet because it's just now gone on the market. But what we have with Kendi, though, and I brought up the way he was fully assimilated, and McWhorter comes into this, is McWhorter's really big on kind of a 4-point. If we focused on this, Black America would be exactly everywhere else, even with everyone else. Excuse me. And one of them is graduate high school. One of them is get married before you have kids and stuff like that. And with Kendi, he's a young man that grew up in basically a middle-class 2-parent household that emphasized his education, even though he admitted himself he really wasn't that into school when he was younger. But they pushed for it. They sent him to charter schools, which is important in this discussion. He graduated high school, so he met one of those points. He was married before he had children. He finished his college education, and he went in exactly the order. He followed all of those things that are markers for success. And yet he's still preaching to young Black America that they can't do it based on those things, because the system. But he followed the system and won, despite the color of the skin. So that's why I harp on Kendi a lot, because he is a walking contradiction, and if he knows it, he's a hypocrite.
And not only, and it's one thing to be a walking contradiction. I mean, okay, yeah, the televangelist who gets caught literally with his pants down. That's hilarious. But what we're talking about here is
Well,
someone
if we could make a joke about it, it would be great, but we can't because of the political environment.
because this is having tangible consequences. Going back to our Kaepernick example, I didn't have this ready to go, but I just thought of it. I can't remember what year it was, but it was like maybe 2017. It was shortly after he wasn't released. He left San Francisco because he
Mhm.
thought he was going to be released. So
Yeah, he
shortly
opted
after,
out. Actually,
yeah,
he could
he
have
opted
forced it.
he opted out of his contract with the 49ers. He took the player option, and the Ravens were looking at him to bring him in, and Ray Lewis was uh was big on it was a big defender of Kaepernick, even if he didn't necessarily agree with his tactics. And he thought that the Ravens should bring in Kaepernick, and he was a big proponent and fan. And then Kaepernick's radical, crazy girlfriend called Ray Lewis a word I can't use, a house slave
Mhm.
for hugging the white owner of the Ravens. So being kind and compassionate and sharing a moment with someone that you work with and respect and have a relationship with, if that person is of a different color and in a higher position of power, then they're a slave master and you're a slave. That's disgusting. So
Mhm.
following that logic, if you are a person of color, you cannot have friends who are white if they don't wholeheartedly agree with this ideology. It's not enough to say, look, we get together, we game, we play sports, we go fishing, we just hang out, whatever.
Uh-oh.
No, that because they're racist.
Okay, so we're gonna finish this up because you kind of broke up on that last part.
Oh no.
Let me bring up a little thing from the How to Be an Anti-Racist book that I think is curious and fun, and then you remind me to say who are the most racist people in America.
Okay.
Okay, so one of the things he brings up in the book, and he says this specifically, is he has this curious gift with the cops. So he was talking about when he was young and his friends would get in trouble and he would get caught with them or whatever. And a curious gift with the cops. He could speak to the cops. He had this gift. And I'm thinking of all the other stuff he wrote about his childhood and his parents and his education and everything. And I'm like, was he just polite and cooperative? Amazing how that works. I don't think you have a gift. I think you were just raised right. And let's give your parents credit.
Which has nothing to do even with raised right. It has nothing to do with being subservient or anything to cops. It's just be polite to people. I mean, just a good person, a polite person will say please and thank you to a fast food worker because that's just common decency, you know? And there's nothing wrong with that. And yet if you take the ideology of Kendi, yes, there is something wrong with that. And that's why it's so insidious. And I had no idea who this guy was until not that long ago. I kept hearing his name. And then I finally heard someone talking about it in more detail. And I was like, all right, what? That basically every baby is born racist. He says some radical, crazy things.
Oh, he wrote Anti-Racist Baby.
And the thing that I thought of was so remember back when Megyn Kelly first left Fox and she got a network show. I think it was on NBC. I can't remember. It was supposed to be an interview show and it didn't last very long. And her first aired interview was with Alex Jones. And the left and some of the right even lost their mind because how dare you even give this guy a platform because he's so vile and he's so crazy and he says such extreme things. They completely ignored the fact that Megyn Kelly did not give him a free ride. She did not
Mhm.
give him a softball. She challenged him. She questioned him rather strenuously on some of these crazy things, and she let him spout off his nonsense so that if anyone didn't know who this guy was, they would come away from that interview going, yeah, he's crazy and possibly evil. And yet these same people who lost their minds over Megyn Kelly giving a hard interview to Alex Jones have absolutely no problem propping up Kendi as some brilliant intellectual.
Yeah, well, and that plays into my hypothesis that critical race theory is the conspiracy theory of the left. And the reason I have to come down so hard on it is because, again, go after your own side, and I was on the left till they pushed me up. But at the same time, that conspiracy theory has gained power. Imagine if QAnon was the major philosophy of the controlling parties in the United States. So just go down that road mentally.
And I'm reminding you, who are the biggest racists?
Oh, the biggest racists.
The anti-racists, but I'm curious who you're going to say.
It is the white anti-racists, the Robin DiAngelos of the world. Because this is why I cannot prescribe to it. And you can call me a lot of things. You can call me wrong. You better bring data, but you can call me wrong. But you cannot call me racist when I get down to the end of it. Because the amount of assumptions I have to make, sorry, family getting here, so it's time to wrap up anyways. By the way, it's my birthday, everybody, so I have a PayPal, send me money. The assumptions I have to make in that poster I brought up earlier, if anybody, I'll link it. I'll put a picture in the comments or something. But the assumptions I have to make about a black person to say that they cannot be a part of American society and succeed are vast and racist. And so if I adhere to systemic racism being the problem, I have to assume you cannot be on time. You cannot learn math. You cannot read at a 12th grade level. You cannot stay with your partner when you have a child. Keep listing them as they go. You cannot assimilate into the United States of America social system and succeed. So I have to assume that to believe in systemic racism. And the white fragility followers, I mean, tell me how you can follow that path and not believe those things. That the system is only set up for basically the amount of melanin that's in my skin. It makes no sense. And I hope at the end of the day, this whole hour and a half, people get that thought that it just makes no sense. And then we go from there. Because when you start trying to make sense, I guarantee we all end up down the same path.
I concur. Now go away.
Yep. Okay, next time we got to talk censorship.
Okay.
Because I need to go into COVID.
We're gonna do our COVID episode next time.
We have to. It's pertinent.
Okay.
It's probably more pertinent than the stuff we're talking about now. So
I keep saying I don't want to do that, but that's basically everything. So
well, yeah, I want to go into how science is censored.
Yeah.
We can talk about the importance of censorship, but the way science is censored, and people say follow the science, is it's more subtle than you would think. It's obvious once you know it.
Yeah.
But it's more subtle, and now you're called a conspiracy theorist even if you mention the words. I'm gonna go ahead and get us canceled now. Lab leak hypothesis.
Yep. All right, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
We'll see how long that lasts.
Bill Maher is now right wing, by the way, according to the media. Bill Maher is right wing because he had Brett Weinstein and Heather Hying on talking about the lab leak hypothesis.
All right, let that sink in, folks, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.